News about CM Punk's surprise return this past Wednesday during AEW Dynamite Quake at the Lake. We have an update when it comes to CM Punk's recovery from his foot injury, as well as the recovery from injury of Kenny Omega. Plus, we'll have the ratings for this week's episode of Dynamite on TBS. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. So let's start off talking about the details surrounding CM Punk's surprise return this past Wednesday. Of course, the AEW World Champion CM Punk returned this past week during AEW Dynamite Quake at the Lake, just after AEW Interim World Champion Jon Moxley had defeated Chris Jericho to retain his championship. This then led to a confrontation, a stare down between the AEW World Champion and the AEW Interim World Champion, seemingly building to a match at All Out to crown an undisputed AEW World Champion. Now, CM Punk, of course, hasn't been seen on AEW television since the June 3rd episode of AEW Rampage, which was live when he announced that he would be forced to take time away from the ring to recover from a foot injury. Now, Punk would then go on to have successful surgery just days later, and he still appeared to be in some significant discomfort and pain just a few weeks ago when he appeared at AEW's panel for the San Diego Comic-Con, calling into question when exactly he would be ready to go. Now, it would appear, unless he sort of gritted his teeth through the pain this past week, which is entirely possible, they might have been working a few people, but it got answered this past week when he returned on AEW Dynamite. And we have some news when it comes to the plans leading to All Out, the sort of secrecy surrounding Punk's return, etc. Now, as reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, the working plan for the main event at AEW's All Out pay-per-view is in fact CM Punk taking on Jon Moxley to determine the undisputed AEW World Champion. Fightful have also been able to confirm that this had been the hope among those in AEW ever since CM Punk went down with his injury just after Double or Nothing, and that there has never been a consideration of bringing CM Punk back earlier, with the feeling that AEW didn't want to put his recovery behind the 8 ball and rush him back before he was ready. Now, it had been reported prior to Dynamite on Wednesday that there was this restricted area backstage. It was actually reported once again by who else? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful Select, reported that there was this restricted area backstage and no one really knew what it was. Now, while this is unconfirmed, this is now believed to have been because of CM Punk's return, and he was essentially hiding from everyone. So it didn't get spoiled, so it didn't get out. And look, it was effective. It didn't get out. Nobody knew CM Punk was coming back, as far as I'm aware. I did not see anyone break that story that CM Punk could be returning or was scheduled to return at Quake by the Lake. It really caught a lot of people by surprise. Now, sources from AEW have also told Fightful that many staff and roster members were not clued into Punk's return, including several wrestlers who participated in that show closing brawl that featured Punk's appearance. So again, there were people actively brawling with CM Punk on Wednesday that had no idea he was going to be showing up. It was also said Punk kept the information quiet as well. In the end, all went according to plan, putting Moxley and Punk on a collision course for the first time since January of 2014 when they clashed in WWE. As I mentioned before, it does appear to be that the working plan is to have CM Punk versus Jon Moxley to crown an undisputed AEW World Champion, that being at the All Out pay-per-view in Chicago in CM Punk's hometown. But just what is going on with CM Punk's injury right now? Of course he's back, but is he ready to wrestle right now, or is it going to take some time? And what's the situation, of course, of Kenny Omega, who's been on the shelf since Full Gear last November? We've heard more and more about a potential return for the Cleaner, and it would appear that All Elite Wrestling is finally crawling back from the injury bug that afflicted it, the company rather, earlier this year. Of course, after Double or Nothing in May, AEW seemed a little bit snake bit as they went into the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. The likes of Adam Cole, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson and others were put on the shelf with injuries over the course of the summer. Of course, that was in addition to the loss of Kenny Omega, as I mentioned, just after Full Gear in November last year. He's been absent from AEW programming while rehabbing a litany of injuries after losing the AEW World Championship to Hangman Adam Page. The injury forced CM Punk to take some time away and make an interim AEW World Championship in his absence. Of course, since then, Bryan Danielson, he's returned to in-ring action, losing to Daniel Garcia in a highly praised match the week prior. CM Punk returned, as I mentioned, this past week on AEW Dynamite, with the two likely to face off at All Out on September 4. With Punk and Omega seemingly readying for an in-ring return, there is some new information available concerning their projected timelines to be medically cleared for action. According to PW Insider, while the AEW World Champion appeared ready to fight the interim World Champion this past week, CM Punk is said to still be rehabbing his repaired foot. It isn't completely healed just yet. He puts a lot of weight on it at the end of Dynamite this past week, but Punk was reportedly still in pain as of a few weeks ago and is fresh out of his walking boot. The report notes that Punk will likely not be wrestling before All Out. His return to the ring will be All Out in Chicago, which to be honest makes sense, not just from we don't want to rush him back, but also build something for the event. Why would you have Punk wrestle on Dynamite when his return match can be at All Out? To me, that doesn't make any sense. Protect the match. Make the match feel bigger. Make it CM Punk's return match to the ring, or his first match, really, since the Dynamites after Double or Nothing. To me, that makes the most sense anyway, irrespective of him not being ready or him still rehabbing his injury on his foot. So I don't think that's a cause for concern. If anything, it's a good thing that he looked relatively fresh this past week, and he's still got a lot of time to go. Well, just under a month until All Out in Chicago, which it would appear that he's definitely going to be ready for. Now, as for Kenny Omega, PW Insider is noting that it is very likely that Kenny Omega will indeed be the mystery partner of the Young Bucks in the upcoming tournament to crown the inaugural AEW Trios champions. The report would not confirm if Omega is indeed the third man, noting that viewers will find out on Dynamite next Wednesday. The Young Bucks and their mystery partner are set to face Dragon Lee, Andrade El Idolo, and Rush. Omega previously held the Never Openweight 6-man tag team championships in New Japan Pro Wrestling alongside the Young Bucks twice. If both Punk and Omega return to the ring soon, it would definitely be a needed boost for AEW programming. I did say before, and I still wouldn't put this past AEW doing this, in that I don't know if Kenny Omega should return to Dynamite and wrestle in a tournament. Again, talking about keeping the return special, keeping the return to the ring special, can't they have where it is Brandon Cutler? I know it's Brandon Cutler, but can't they have a thing where it's Brandon Cutler until the finals? And then they go, well, we've got someone else planned, or Brandon Cutler gets injured on the Dynamite before, and they go, we're going to have to find someone else, and then that's Kenny Omega's return. That to me feels bigger. That to me feels better. But then I suppose you could argue they want to build to that eventual big finals match. So I don't know. It would appear, though, that it is likely that Kenny Omega is going to be returning next week on Dynamite. For me, again, I wish it was done bigger. I wish it was done with more hype. But we'll wait and see how effective it is, and if Kenny Omega's return and CM Punk's return as well can drive Dynamite over 1 million viewers for the first time in a while. Speaking of the ratings, though, as well, the ratings are in for this week's edition of Dynamite, the Quake at the Lake special, even though every week's a bit of a special. But WrestleNomics has released the viewership information for Wednesday night, and Quake by the Lake garnered 972,000 average viewers, which is a 4% increase from the previous week's Dynamite. Looking at the T demographic for the evening, the episode received 430,000 average viewers for a 0.33 18 to 49 demographic rating, which is also a 3% boost from the week prior, so up very, very slightly, single-digit growth when it comes to not only the viewership, but also the key demographic. However, AEW was still very happy with this, because for the evening, Dynamite came first overall in cable originals in the key demo. In broadcast prime time, the program ranked 7th, even if viewership numbers have plateaued for Dynamite. And the key takeaway, as I mentioned, that the show has consistently come in first in the rankings for cable originals over 8 out of the past 10 weeks. And that is ultimately what AEW and, it's not even Warner Media now, what is it? Warner Media Discovery, or Discovery Warner Media, that merge or whatever. Looking back a year, it must be said, there isn't much difference between the Dynamite and total viewership. The August 11, 2021 episode had 979,000 average viewers, which is just under a 1% difference from Quake by the Lake. The key demographic had a stronger rating, a 0.35 rating, giving the program a 6% advantage over Quake by the Lake. Dynamite certainly has plateaued in the ratings in terms of viewership. Again, this time last year, whilst not specifically for this episode, but in general, it felt like they were doing over 1 million viewers much more comfortably. Now it's just under. The difference isn't massive. The drop-off is what you would expect with television year on year. AEW certainly feels a lot colder than it did this time last year. Hopefully with the return of your Punks, your Omegas, Danielson getting back in the ring, maybe that might change things. Time will tell. We'll have to wait and see ultimately with that one. But the discussion about ratings always gets people going. Does it matter? Doesn't it matter? Nowadays, it doesn't matter as much, of course, because you've already got the television revenue. You don't make your revenue really off of television ratings. You make it through your television contracts, which AEW already has. You make it off licensing. You make it off merchandising. You make it off ticket sales. You make it off, pay-per-view buys. That's AEW's model still. So they're doing just fine. I guess the conversation will be is when their television contract comes up, what's the new regime at Warner Media, Discovery Warner Media, really going to think about AEW? But as the report mentions, still 8 out of the last 10 weeks, they've been number one on cable, which ultimately is really what Warner Media Discovery will care about. So I think ultimately they will be fine. As I mentioned, 3 things draw nowadays. Sport always draws massively. Cable news, depending on what's going on, but nowadays especially, cable news draws, and so does wrestling. Wrestling always will deliver an audience. I mean, I say always in terms of it's a safe bet. The wrestling fans are always there. It's a safe bet. So I think AEW is going to be just fine. But let me know your thoughts on today's AEW stories in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.